"Make me your wife just for tonight," said the widowed woman. So the cowboy gave her a chance. Before we begin this story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The rifle shot split the canyon air like thunder from a cloudless sky. Wyatt Callahan pressed his back against cold stone, feeling the roughness scrape through his worn leather coat. Blood soaked through his left shoulder, warm and sticky, painting the rock behind him a deep crimson. His Colt single-action army felt heavier than it ever had. 2 rounds left in the cylinder, 3 men closing in from different angles. Somewhere behind him, hidden in the shadows of Red Rock Canyon, a woman waited. A woman he had promised to protect. A woman whose husband had died because of a debt that stretched back 15 years to a blood-soaked battlefield in Georgia. His younger brother Daniel had died because of a broken promise. His brother's cousin Thomas had died the same way. Wyatt swore he would not fail again. "Not this time," he whispered through gritted teeth, tasting copper on his tongue. "Not her." 3 days earlier, everything had been different. 3 days earlier, Wyoming Territory, autumn of 1878. The dying sun painted the mountain ridges in shades of blood, orange and deep purple, as Wyatt Callahan rode toward the cabin he had rented through a trader in the settlement of Red Fork. 42 years walked heavy on his shoulders. Former Union cavalry, former scout, former bounty hunter, former brother. The war between the states had given him skills most men would never need and never want. Reading tracks in dust that told stories clearer than words, shooting a moving target at 200 yards with iron sights, staying alive when the men around him dropped like autumn leaves. After Appomattox, he had turned those hard-earned skills into a living, hunting men with prices on their heads across 6 territories. Then Daniel died. 2 years ago come winter. An ambush on the Colorado border near a place called Bitter Creek. Wyatt had convinced his younger brother to join him on what should have been a simple job. Track a horse thief. Collect a $200 reward. Go home alive. The ambush came from nowhere. 6 men with rifles positioned on the ridges above the trail. Professional, patient. They had been waiting for someone specific. Daniel took 3 bullets before he hit the ground. Wyatt remembered the sound his brother made. Not a scream, just a surprised grunt, like someone had shoved him unexpectedly. Then the wet thud of a body hitting dirt. Wyatt killed 4 of the ambushers in the firefight that followed. The other 2 vanished into the mountains like smoke. He never found out who hired them or why. He only knew that his brother died because of him. He had not taken a job since. The guilt followed him across every mile of trail, sleeping beside him at night, riding behind him during the day. The cabin appeared through the pine trees, small, weathered gray by decades of mountain storms. Perfect for a man who wanted to disappear. Wyatt dismounted and checked his Winchester Model 1873 from habit. 15 rounds in the tube magazine. His Colt .45 sat heavy on his right hip. Old habits kept men alive. He pushed open the cabin door. His hand found the Colt's grip before his mind registered the movement in the shadows. The gun cleared leather in half a heartbeat. A figure pressed against the far wall. Small frame, female, terrified but fighting not to show it. She stepped into the fading light from the doorway. A Cheyenne woman, mid-20s. Her deerskin dress hung torn at the shoulder, beadwork scattered and broken. Cuts marked her forearms. A dark bruise spread beneath her left eye. She had been running hard, fighting harder. Her dark eyes met his without flinching. "Make me your wife just for tonight." Her voice came steady, controlled. "Tomorrow I will be gone." Wyatt understood immediately. A woman alone on the frontier faced dangers beyond weather and wildlife. If men believed she belonged to someone, certain threats would pass her by. She was not offering herself. She was trying to survive. He holstered the Colt slowly, keeping his movements visible. You don't need to claim anything. His voice came out rough. You can stay without offering that. Who's hunting you? Something shifted in her expression. Surprise. She had prepared for demands, violence, rejection, not kindness. 6 men, she said after a long pause. Their leader has a scar across his left eye. Rides a black horse. They killed my husband 2 weeks ago. They have been chasing me since. The blood drained from Wyatt's face. A scar across the left eye. Black horse. He knew only one man who matched that description. Marcus Redfield, former Confederate officer, deserter. The man Wyatt had fought hand-to-hand at Chickamauga in '63. The man whose eye Wyatt had taken with a bayonet thrust. The man Wyatt believed had died in a Union prison camp. Redfield, Wyatt breathed. The name tasted like ash and old blood. You know him. I should have killed him 15 years ago. Wyatt built a fire while the woman watched from across the room. He moved deliberately, showing her his hands, never making sudden gestures. Trust took time to build. Fear took only seconds to destroy. My name is Kaya, she said when the flames had grown strong enough to push back the cold. Wyatt Callahan. He offered her water and a tin of salve for her wounds. She accepted both without speaking, treating the cuts on her arms with the efficiency of someone who had done it many times before. Your husband, Wyatt said carefully. What was his name? Thomas Garrett. He was a guide, helped settlers cross the mountains safely. The name hit Wyatt like a fist to the chest. Thomas Garrett, Daniel's cousin on their mother's side. The boy Daniel had talked about constantly during the war. The one who had gone west to make something of himself while they were busy killing Confederates. Wyatt had never met Thomas in person, but Daniel had loved him like a brother. I knew of him, Wyatt said quietly, through family. Kaya's eyes widened slightly. The connection formed silently between them, invisible but real as iron chains. Midnight came cold and quiet. Then hoofbeats shattered the silence. Wyatt's hand found his Colt before he fully woke. He motioned Kaya toward the shadows behind the bed, then pressed himself against the wall beside the door. Boots thudded on the porch. The doorknob rattled once, then a voice Wyatt had not heard in 15 years, but would never forget. Callahan. Marcus Redfield's southern drawl came through the wooden door like poison seeping through cracks. I know you're in there. Saw your horse. My man in town told me you'd rented this place. Small world, ain't it? Wyatt said nothing. His finger rested on the trigger. The woman belongs to me. She knows where the gold is. $20,000 in Army payroll I liberated from a wagon train last spring. Her husband hid it before I could convince him to share the location. She knows where. Silence stretched like a held breath. Hand her over and walk away. You owe me nothing. Hell, I'll even forget about the eye you took from me. Or stay and die with her. Your choice, Callahan. You have until sunrise to decide. The boots retreated. Hoofbeats faded into the night. Wyatt released a breath he had not realized he was holding. We leave before first light, he said to Kaya, and you're going to tell me everything about that gold. They rode hard through the pre-dawn darkness, following game trails too narrow for easy tracking. Wyatt led them toward Red Rock Canyon, a twisted slash through the mountains where horses could not follow, and sound played tricks on even experienced hunters. When the first gray light touched the eastern peaks, they stopped to rest the horses in a sheltered draw. Kaya finally told him the complete truth. Thomas found the gold by accident. He was guiding a group of miners through the high passes and stumbled across Redfield's camp. He saw the Army markings on the strongbox. He knew what that meant. She pulled a folded piece of leather from inside her dress. A map, crudely drawn but clear enough to follow. Thomas moved the gold in the night, hid it somewhere Redfield would never find. He was going to turn it over to the Army, Collect the finder's reward. Start fresh somewhere safe. Her voice cracked like thin ice. Redfield found him before he could. Wyatt studied the map carefully. Then he looked at Kaya with knowing eyes. There's something else. Something you haven't told me yet. She met his gaze. Whatever she had been holding back finally broke free. Before Thomas died, Redfield told him something. He said this was payment for Callahan. He said you took his eye in the war. Now he takes everything from anyone connected to you. The words hit Wyatt like rifle rounds to the chest. Thomas had not died for the gold. He died because Marcus Redfield discovered his connection to Wyatt through Daniel. This was revenge. Personal, deliberate, calculated over 15 years of festering hatred. And suddenly, the ambush that killed Daniel 2 years ago made terrible, perfect sense. Redfield, Wyatt said, his voice cold as mountain ice. He paid for that ambush. The one that killed my brother. He's been hunting everyone connected to me. It was not a question. The pieces had finally fallen into place. 2 years of guilt. 2 years of wondering why Daniel had to die. Now he knew the answer. This ends today, Wyatt said. The bounty hunter had returned, cold, focused, deadly as a coiled rattlesnake. Red Rock canyons swallowed them whole by mid-morning. Walls of rust-colored stone rose 200 feet on either side, blocking most of the sunlight. The passage twisted and turned like a wounded snake, sometimes so narrow they had to walk single file with shoulders nearly touching both walls. Wyatt moved with his Winchester ready, the brass receiver gleaming dully in the dim light. Sound behaved strangely in this place. A voice could echo from anywhere or nowhere. Hoofbeats could seem close when they were a mile distant. Kaya kept pace despite her injuries. Her moccasins barely whispered on the stone floor. She knew how to move through difficult terrain. Her people had survived in these mountains for more generations than anyone could count. An hour deep into the canyon, Wyatt spotted the sign. Fresh boot prints in a patch of sandy soil. Someone had passed through recently. Someone on foot, someone waiting. He raised his hand. Kaya froze instantly. "Scout," Wyatt whispered. "Get behind those rocks. Don't move until I come for you." He found the scout around the next bend. Colt Jennings. Wyatt recognized him from wanted posters that papered every sheriff's office from Denver to Sacramento. Fast hands. Faster with a knife. $300 dead or alive. Jennings saw Wyatt at the exact moment Wyatt saw him. The scout's hand moved toward his holster with practiced speed. Wyatt was faster by a quarter second. The Winchester roared, the sound deafening in the narrow canyon. Jennings spun backward and dropped without a sound. The echo had not finished dying when 2 more men appeared from behind an outcropping 30 yards ahead. They had been waiting, using Jennings as bait to draw out their prey. Wyatt dove left as bullets sparked off the stone where he had been standing. He rolled behind a boulder, worked the Winchester's lever with smooth efficiency, and came up firing. The first man took a round through the center of his chest. He was dead before his body hit the ground. The second man got a shot off. The bullet tore through Wyatt's left shoulder like a red-hot poker. He gasped at the sudden fire of pain, steadied himself against the cold rock, and squeezed the trigger. The man fell and did not move again. 3 down. 3 more to go, including Redfield. Kaya appeared at his side, her face pale but determined as granite. She tore a strip from her dress and bound his shoulder with quick, efficient movements that spoke of practice. "You need a doctor. I need to finish this." Wyatt pushed himself upright. The pain nearly dropped him back to his knees. He ignored it through sheer will. "Can you shoot?" "Thomas taught me. I can hit a target at 20 yards. He handed her his Colt, 6 rounds in the cylinder. She took it without hesitation, her grip steady and sure. "If anyone gets past me, you shoot to kill. No hesitation, no mercy. Understood?" She nodded once. Her hand did not shake. They reached the canyon's far end as the sun began its long descent toward the western peaks. Open ground stretched before them, dotted with sagebrush and scattered rock formations that offered cover. A ridge to the north provided high ground with clear sight lines in every direction. "There," Wyatt said through clenched teeth. "We make our stand on that ridge." They climbed. Wyatt's shoulders screamed with every movement, but he forced himself to keep going through willpower alone. At the top, he positioned Kaya behind a cluster of boulders with clear lines of fire covering the approaches. Then he checked his Winchester. 8 rounds left. It would have to be enough. They waited as the sun crawled lower. The 3 riders appeared from the canyon mouth as golden light flooded the valley. Marcus Redfield led them, his black horse picking its way carefully across the broken ground. Even from 100 yards, Wyatt could see the ugly scar that split the left side of his face from hairline to jaw. 15 years of hatred crystallized into perfect, diamond-hard focus. The riders stopped 100 yards from the ridge. Redfield studied the high ground with his one good eye, calculating odds and angles like the officer he had once been. "Callahan," his voice carried across the open space, strong and mocking. "You killed my men, but I'm a reasonable man. Give me the woman and the map. I'll let you ride away free and clear." Wyatt stood up from behind his cover, the Winchester leveled at Redfield's chest, steady as a stone pillar despite the fire burning in his shoulder. "You killed Thomas because of me. You had my brother murdered because of me. Innocent men died because of your 15-year grudge. This ends here, Redfield. Today. Now." Redfield's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile on a human being. "You took my eye at Chickamauga. I've been taking pieces of your life ever since. Your brother was just the first installment. Thomas was the interest payment." He laughed, on a cold and empty sound. "We weren't even close to square yet. The debt ends now." Wyatt fired first. Redfield threw himself from his horse as the bullet cracked past his ear. His 2 remaining men scattered, returning fire as they spurred their horses toward the ridge. Wyatt worked the Winchester's lever with mechanical precision, dropping one man cleanly from his saddle. The other rider charged straight up the slope, pistol blazing. The Colt roared behind Wyatt. Kaya's shot took the charging rider through the throat at 15 yards. He tumbled from his horse and lay still, blood pooling black in the fading light. That left Redfield. The former Confederate had used the chaos to circle wide. He came up the ridge from the blind eastern side, moving with the silence of a man who had learned to kill in the dark during 4 years of brutal war. Wyatt turned too late. The knife caught him across the ribs as he twisted desperately away. White-hot pain exploded through his side. He lost his grip on the Winchester. It clattered down the rocks, useless. Redfield came at him again, blade gleaming. Wyatt caught the knife hand, but his wounded shoulder betrayed him with weakness. They went down together, struggling on the cold stone like 2 wolves fighting over territory. "I should have finished you at Chickamauga," Redfield snarled, pressing the blade inch by inch toward Wyatt's throat. "Should have cut your throat while you were bleeding in the mud. You weren't man enough then." Wyatt drove his knee up hard into Redfield's gut. "You're not man enough now." He twisted with every ounce of remaining strength, using Redfield's own momentum against him. His fist found the scarred eye socket and drove deep. Redfield screamed in agony and dropped the knife. Wyatt grabbed the fallen Colt from where it had skittered across the stone, pressed the cold barrel against Redfield's sweat-slicked forehead. "For Daniel," he said, his voice steady as bedrock. "For Thomas. For every innocent person you've destroyed to hurt me." He pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the mountains and faded into silence. Dawn painted the Wyoming sky in shades of rose and gold as Wyatt sat against a sun-warmed boulder. Kaya had rebandaged his wounds during the long night. The bleeding had stopped. The pain remained, but pain was an old companion he knew well. "What happens to the gold?" Kaya asked, her voice soft in the morning stillness. We recover it using your map. Turn it over to the army. They pay finders rewards for recovered property. 10%. Should be $2,000. He paused. Enough for you to start over somewhere safe. Build a new life. Kaya was quiet for a long moment, watching the light spread across the valley below. And you, what will you do? Wyatt looked out over the land, mountains rising blue and eternal to the north, open sky stretching forever in every direction. For 2 years he had been running from ghosts. Now the ghosts were finally buried. The debt of blood had been paid in full. There's a ranch up in Montana. Man I served with during the war offered me work once. Honest work. Cattle, horses, open range. Maybe it's time I finally took him up on that offer. Montana, Kaya said the word slowly, testing its weight. Cold in winter, I hear. You'd know better than most. Cheyenne territory stretches up that way. Their eyes met. No promises were spoken. None needed to be. They had survived something together that most people would never understand. That kind of bond did not require words. Wyatt pushed himself painfully to his feet, testing his wounded leg. We've got a long ride to town, then a longer ride to that gold. You ready for that? Kaya rose beside him. The fear that had haunted her eyes when they first met was gone completely. In its place stood something steadier, something that looked remarkably like hope. Ready! They mounted their horses and rode north as the sun climbed higher. Behind them lay the bodies of violent men who had chosen their own fate. Ahead lay the promise of recovered gold, honest reward, and perhaps something more valuable than either. The war that had started 15 years ago on a bloody battlefield in Georgia was finally over. The debt of blood had been paid. The ledger was closed. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Wyatt Callahan rode toward tomorrow instead of running from yesterday, together. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Western tales of courage, honor, and redemption.